Hello and welcome. So here in England it is about 1,000 degrees. It is so hot that I am trying to wear as few clothes as possible without being indecent. The temperature seems to have suddenly rose. We are definitely in the midst of summer, finally. So if I do seem to be a little bit more poolish or sluggish, that is why. Bear with me and we are going to get through this. So today's video we're going to be looking at the history of the tarot card, where it came from and how it came to be used for clairvoyance and sort of seeing the future. So if you like all things interesting, magical and wonderful, grab a drink, turn out the lights, it's going to get interesting. So the original playing card decks were introduced to Europe within the 1300s. There's no actual evidence or formal documentation to say that these playing cards were ever used for clairvoyance like the tarot cards. It wasn't until the 1440s that the first mention of any form of cards being used like tarot cards were recorded, and this was in Italy and along the Mediterranean coast. The first design of the tarot cards, it appears, was only really designed to be used as a game. Like the common playing cards, they held different suits. They had 4 different suits altogether, numbered 1 or ace up until the 10. These were also known as the pip cards. And it also held the court cards like the normal decks, and in the tarot cards you have the queen, the knight, the page and the king. Altogether there were 14 cards within each suit, and there were 4 different suits altogether. As I mentioned, you have the cups, the wands, the swords and the pentacles. Now, unlike the normal playing deck of cards, this deck of cards also held 22 symbolic cards. These symbolic cards didn't actually affiliate to any of the 4 suits and actually stood alone. Within this 22 symbolic cards, it also held the Fool, which in the normal playing deck cards, the Joker had not been introduced, so they did not have anything resembling the Fool either. The game that was originally played with these cards was known as Triumph, which apparently is very similar to the modern game of Bridge. The game quickly spread in popularity all across Europe under the name of tarocchi, which is the Italian version of the French word tarot around the 1530s. The word tarot and the German tarot derive from the Italian word tarocchi, the origins of which aren't exactly clear where this word comes from, but tarot was used as a synonym for the word and meant foolishness in the late 15th century and the early 16th century. It was then exclusively known as trionfi during the 15th century, and interestingly enough, in modern Italian, these single term tarocco is a noun, and it means a type of blood orange, and as an adjective means fake or counterfeit. Around 1781 in England and France, people who were involved in what was known as the occult, so this could be anything from spiritualism to Wicca or paganism, were introduced to these cards. Now, they felt the trump cards, or the 22 symbolic cards, were actually more than just playing cards, and they actually had very specific meanings behind them. They began to use their spiritualism to interpret these cards and then use them for divination purposes, and that is where the first known form of tarot card that as we know them appear within history, and the name tarot card really sticks. There are some who believe tarot cards actually have roots connected to ancient Egypt. They believe that the tarot cards themselves, or the symbolic cards, are actually hieroglyphic keys of life. Now, the cards in generally split into 2 categories. The major arcana, which is made up of 21 symbolic cards and the Fool, so 22 cards altogether. These generally represent life lessons, karmic influences, and the big archetype themes that influence life and the soul's journey to enlightenment. The Fool is generally the main character of the major arcana. As the story goes, he travels through each of the cards, being introduced to new lessons and new teachers, as he ends up at the world card at the very end as a new man or new person after all the lessons of life. The second category is the Mana Arcana. These reflect the trials and tribulations that we experience on a daily basis. They're generally called minor, but they hold no less weight than those of the Major Arcana. These cards generally relate to what's currently happening in your life and offer you insight into how your present situation is affecting you and what steps to take next. Generally these will have temporary influences, or in other words, depending on your view, they symbolize a sort of moving energy, depending on what actions you take of that energy as well, depending on how you shift the energy through your life. Altogether, there are 56 cards within the category, divided into 4 suits, as we mentioned before, each having 14 cards. Now, the suits of cups generally deal with the emotional level of consciousness and are associated with things like love, relationships, and connections. Commonly associated with water, water is also associated with emotions, intuition, relationships, healing, and cleansing. A feminine element is a subtle but strong power attached to the heart and the elements of the heart. Negative aspects of the cups are being overly emotional or disengaged or dispassionate about something, unrealistic expectations, and fantasizing about what could be rather than what is. It can also symbolize things like repressed emotions or an inability to truly express yourself. Now, the next suit is the swords, and they deal with the mental level of consciousness. That focuses on the mind and intellect. It reflects your thoughts, your attitude, and your beliefs. Now, obviously a sword is double-edged, which this is very much reflected in the cards, and it symbolizes the fine line between intelligence and power, and how these elements can play for either good or evil. Generally, the sword should be balanced between a spirit card, which is the 1, or a feeling card, which is the cup, to have the most positive effect. This card is often associated with the element of air, and kind of like air, it's one of the most sort of elements that goes unnoticed because it can go still, which can be quite dangerous as it can suddenly turn into a whirlwind and send you completely off course. It is a powerful element but can also be refreshing, especially when using in a cleansing way. Symbolically, the element of air is kind of associated with knowledge, action, power, and change. It is a masculine element and can lead by force or brute power, or can be a subtle, unseen, gentle force. Generally, within the original deck of cards, the swords are generally related to the spades. The negative influences of the swords can be things like anger, guilt, harsh judgment either on yourself or other people, or from someone else onto you, a lack of compassion, again, any of those sort of like triangular ways, and verbal and mental abuse. The next deck is the Pentacles, which deal with the physical and external level of consciousness. So this can touch on things like health, finance, work, and creativity. We deal with our perception of the outer surroundings that surround us and how we interact and manifest them to aid in our own growth. They are also associated with the ego, self-esteem, and self-image. This is associated with the element of earth. Earth is actually quite tactile and tangible. It creates the foundations from which all plants can grow and develop and support life. Words that kind of commonly associated with earth are things like grounded, supportive, and fertile, which then leads on to the fact that earth is a feminine element. The great thing about earth, and one of its strongest points, is that it will take external sources like sun, water, air, all the other sort of elements, and use that energy to produce new energy to be used in growth and birth. In the original deck of cards, Pentacles generally correlate to the diamonds. Now, the negative effects of the Pentacles are possessiveness, greed, overly materialistic natures, overindulging, inefficient management of, this could be your career, your finances, or just generally your life management, and being overly focused on your career. It is a sign to kind of reground yourself and sort of rediscover what's really important. Now, the last deck is the Wands, and this deals with primal energy, spirituality, inspiration, determination, intuition, also creativity like the Pentacles, ambition, and expansion. This card is generally associated with the element of fire. Fire is obviously hot, it is wild, it's unpredictable, and it has a lot of energy. It can either help with the creation and the sustaining of life, or it can be destructive and end life. Fire is also a symbol of passion, energy, enthusiasm, and sexuality. And because of these things, it's often associated with being masculine. It can reflect the drive and the willpower of all humans, and generally with the original deck of playing cards, it correlates to the clubs. The negative aspects of the wands is illusion, egotism, impulsive behaviour, which can always sometimes be a good thing, but I think in this sense it is that impulsive behaviour where you kind of break out without thinking about it, lack of direction, and feeling meaningless. Now obviously depending on your view, depending on how you would maybe use tarot cards and how your view is on them, generally they do say that you should never allow someone else to touch your tarot cards or use your tarot cards, as it can disrupt the energy that you give them. Prefer that when they do a reading that they hand it to the person they're reading for, and they will shuffle it for themselves and then pick the cards. It really kind of depends on your view of it. I'm not here to kind of tell you what's the right way and what the wrong way is to do it. I'm just kind of here to kind of give you the facts about them and give you a little bit more insight to where they come from, what they are, and how that they are used. I think one of the main things that is kind of a very common misunderstanding about tarot cards is that some people kind of feel it is a very definitive answer to questions, when it's really not. As we mentioned before, it is a changing of energy. It's a symbolizing of energy that's passing through, and how you interact with that energy and how you manifest it to how the outcome is. A lot of the time what the cards will generally do is give you a outcome for how you're currently behaving and how you're currently interpreting your surroundings, how you're interacting it to what that particular outcome will be, and it will generally kind of give you guidance of how to maybe steer away from that, or if it's the direction that you should be going in, how to kind of continue on that path and what you should be doing. Well, there you have it guys, that is kind of the history of the tarot cards, where they came from and how to use them on a basic level. If you'd like to know any more about tarot cards, do let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see me do a tarot reading, again, do message me, I will happily do that. If you'd like me to explain individual cards and give explanations of the cards, I will happily do that as well, just let me know. Once again, thank you for joining, and I hope to see you on the flip side, and hopefully you have a great week. Bye!